almost like you can hear the ba-dum kind of sort of happening in the conversation. And this, I mean, the funeral director did not know what to make of it for a start.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, sign up for more support with meeting your needs with your weekly Universal Needs notes at theuniversalneeds.com.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
So apparently I'm ready for my holiday photo shoot, although I didn't realize that when I got dressed today.
I'm ready for a holiday photo shoot too. Look.
I know. I thought that's a brilliant coincidence. Like if you're not watching on the video, go take a quick look at the video podcast because
they're two totally different holiday shoots, which
right.
is kind of fun.
Well, and the reason this came about was like I'll let you know what I'm wearing. I won't share what Serena's wearing, but like I'm wearing like a cream sweater because it's cold here right now and it's about to get a whole lot colder. Like I know people are like, oh, you get cold in Florida. I'm like, apparently it's gonna be sub-zero in Orlando this weekend. So yeah, cold. I mean, not that cold here, but it is cold for us. So sweater weather. So I put on this cream sweater and then I realized that my entire living room is cream. Like everything around me is cream, everything to the side of me, everything behind me. And I was like, do I like blend in too much to the background? And Serena's like, no, you look matchy. Then she was like, apparently I'm getting ready for a holiday. I'm like,
well, you have like the twinkle lights behind you. And if you kind of blur your eyes a little bit, like it looks like snow in the window, not a fence behind you. So I saw like, I was telling her like cream and jean or cream and white, like those apparently are American things. And I haven't done any sort of like family photos or anything like that. Like JC Penney and Sears. I don't even know if they do that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like it's my favorite. Look at Nana. That was my favorite. Like they'd have like a
superimposed,
of somebody hazy, who's like a different family member. A lot of times it was somebody who passed away and they were like floating in the ether and you just looked up at them like, oh, portrait photos were a fun thing back in the day. But no, like jean and white.
I haven't done one for a while, but I mean, and I've never done holiday photos. That was not a thing, but I'm like, surely like red. And the funny thing is it was between this and a red sweater. I'm like, surely the red sweater would be holiday pictures, but no, apparently I'm all set for my American holidays in January. Like,
well, like it's more like a winter photo if you didn't want to I don't know. I see it. I see the 1993 vision.
I think it maybe should stay in 1993. It's funny though, because like in that sort of time frame, like it was definitely in fashion to wear like it was cream in the UK. It was cream sweaters, black leggings, and like the cream or white slouch socks. Like that was the thing that everybody was wearing at that time. So I'm like, maybe it was the thing in England in 1993 for the holidays, and I just didn't take holiday pictures that year. So.
And I think my dates might be really off too, so do not quote me on that.
I think in my world it was probably a little later than that, like more 1995. But hey, it was a long time ago. I don't want to talk about how long ago that was because, yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. We kind of were wanting to sort of piggyback on our last episode. In fact, actually, this was the episode that really inspired the last one. It kind of came the other way around, but it felt right to do that one first and then this one. And that's It came about because of the singing competition that I'm in at the moment. And and if you're listening to the podcast, you're like, oh my God, how long is the singing competition? It's because we've recorded several like in 1 week of the singing competition. So it's like, it's not going on for months and months and months and months, although it may seem like it. Although I think I'm going to get eliminated. You get eliminated after a few weeks. Some people do. And I'm like, I've got a feeling I'm going to be one of the first ones to go. Not because I can't sing, but just because when I'm already hitting people up for donations to my own nonprofit. So I'm not sure how many people are going to donate to this other nonprofit. Anyway, all that to one side. This week was an interesting one because there's a lot kind of going on in the world right now. There's a lot of really scary things happening. We're still waiting on this winter storm we were talking about in the last episode that's going to come across. That's could cause some like serious loss of life. There's just a lot going on right now. And as I said, I had a song that I was singing about like having a good time, and I felt a little uncomfortable singing the song because it didn't feel appropriate for the moment. I decided that I didn't feel right to change it either because other people had put a lot of effort and time into my costume. So I didn't feel right changing it either. So I kind of just went ahead with it. But because this is all to raise money for a nonprofit, they want you to share about the fact that you're in the competition and let people know how they can donate. And that felt weird. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like Tuesday morning was when I was sharing. I was like, oh God, this feels a little strange sharing about it. It seems so irrelevant. It seems so unimportant with everything else that's going on in the world right now. And I was debating, and I actually was talking to one of the other contestants about this the day at the event. And we were both saying it feels really weird to be sharing about this at the moment because there feels like more important things that should be shared right now. And then I realized something, and it reminded me of something, which is that joy is so important in difficult times. Like it's one of the most important things in difficult times because it's one of the first things to go in difficult times. It's one of the first things to kind of disappear off the radar. People don't even think about it. People don't, they, especially when things are tough, like sometimes joy can feel so far away from you that it's like, I don't even know. Like, what do you mean joy? Like how do you have joy right now? How is joy even a thing? And the truth of the matter is, I have a little fly that's, I thought I'd been able to catch, but it was like floating around, and it was like, I did not. So yeah, if you're wondering what that was all about, that was me trying to catch a little fly that was floating around my living room. Anyway, because joy can feel so far away, it's like we don't even think about it. Like we just are in coping mode. We're in like, let's just get through this. Let's just navigate these difficult times as best we can. And as I said, joy just falls off the radar. But the thing about joy is that in those difficult times, if you can find moments of joy, that can resource you and support your needs better than so many other things in those moments, especially if you're in a coping mode, because coping and joy are two very, very different things. You can be in general coping mode, and then you have this little pocket of joy, this little moment, this little glimpse of joy that shows up, and it just gives you a boost. It just gives you a lift. And that's the thing that I thought about when I was sharing this week, which is, I mean, my goal with this singing competition is to make it as ridiculous as possible. That's my goal. Like if I can make things fun and silly and ridiculous, I have an idea for, we don't know what the themes are for different weeks as they're coming up. And I don't know how many weeks I'm going to stay in this thing. But for example, there normally is a duets week that kind of shows up at some point. And when I was thinking about this, I was trying to kind of prepare for the sort of things I might want to do. And so I reached out to a friend of mine to see if they would do For Good with me from Wicked. So the Glinda and Elphaba duet. And they were like, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, let me have a look at it and see what I can do. My goal is to try and get one of those inflatable like sumo balls so that I can be Glinda in the bubble. while I'm singing, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I feel like that's my job. Like my job right now on that stage is to bring a little bit of lightness, to bring a little bit of joy, to bring a little bit of fun in a brief moment. Like when we leave that place, we all go back into the same world right now. And things are tough at the moment. So it's not to ignore that. It's to say, this is a moment to help you when you go back out into that. I mean, they said like, I can't remember what the quote is from when like the peak of the AIDS epidemic, but they would say that I think they cared for their, and I'm going to paraphrase here. We'll find it and we'll pop it in the show notes, what the actual phrase it. But basically what they were saying was that they cared for the sick in the mornings. In the afternoon, they buried the dead, and at night they danced. And it was the dancing that got them through and enabled them to keep going through those tragic and terrible times. Like we should probably get a trigger warning on this for that, because it's that knowing people who lived through the worst of that was a terribly difficult time. But it was the joy, it was the dancing, and that's what joy. The reason the dancing was that because the dancing gave you moments of joy. I mean, dancing can be used to kind of get other, like, can be a way of expressing grief. It can be a way of like getting other emotions out of you, like anger or frustration, out of your system. But it will bring you those pockets of joy, and those pockets of joy are what enable you to get through. I mean, this week I was wearing a crown and a royal cape, and I had an inflatable electric guitar that I did air guitar on stage with. I mean, it was silly. Like, it was silly. That was the whole point of it. But for me right now, can I get up there and sing a song? Yeah. And are the songs I'm singing the best ones for me vocally? No, they're not. But they're the songs that I think might bring that kind of glimpse of like a moment of respite, a moment of a different emotion that will fuel people to enable them to go back out and continue to deal with the challenging times that we're all in right now. And I think that it's so important to speak to this, because so many people avoid joy like the plague when times are tough, because they don't want to. I mean, interestingly enough, that this episode actually first got inspired from a post that a friend of mine made months ago. And they were saying like no, still didn't get this fly's doing my head in. It's like, sorry.
That one looked kind of confident though.
I mean, I thought I had it and then I didn't. Anyway, this friend of mine was saying that he had like things that he wanted to share, and he was reticent to share them because he was afraid it was inappropriate. He was afraid that people would judge him for sharing these moments of joy at times when other people were struggling. And the truth of the matter is, it's in how you do it. Like, if you're wanting to share your joy, being joyful in a way that is showing complete disregard for where anyone else might be at, that's one thing. But like in like this week in the post that I shared, it feels strange to be sharing about this. And this is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to remind people that joy is still here. And especially when it feels like we're like running upstream against things that are outside of our control. Like when those things steal our joy, that's when they win. Like when we allow our joy to be taken away from us, we reduce our resilience. We reduce our level of internal resources. We disconnect from that which is important. We disconnect from that which fuels us. And when we do that, then these other things win. And it's so important to not only remember to cultivate joy, remember to find moments of joy, but also to share about them in ways that are mindful and considerate of everything else that's going on, to remind other people that it's okay to still experience joy. It's like the thing that it reminds me of is like, if you go through if you've been through a bereavement, if you've trigger warning for grief coming up on bereavement, if you've been through a bereavement, the first time you laugh after somebody has passed feels really weird, because it feels like, well, should I even be laughing right now? is that okay? Is it allowed? And some people, that's how they deal with those sorts of things. So that's going to be very much a part of that process. I know there's somebody sitting, I was going to say sitting not too far away from me. I mean, you are actually sitting quite far away from me, but next to me on the screen, who deals with things in those ways. But I think that a lot of other people, they stifle it. They bring it down, and it's like the thing that allows us to kind of get through in these moments is to bring all of those things in. It's not to deny that you might be scared of things that are going on in the world. It's not to ignore or say that there's no sense of overwhelm. It's not to diminish your grief in any way, shape, or form. It's about allowing all of the aspects of the human experience. It's allow all the aspects of our emotions to be present and not making any of them right or wrong in any circumstance. And in fact, deliberately sometimes cultivating the ones that are going to help support you in those times, as well as allowing the ones that are naturally present in those times as well. I'm finding a way of allowing both of those to be true without judging that as being inappropriate in some way.
I think a lot of people have trouble, and I know we've done an episode on this in the past, we'll put it in the show notes, about resisting joy. And in these times when things are difficult, or if you're in a moment of grief or anything like that, a lot of people resist the joy because they don't feel like they can have both of the feelings at the same time, like extreme grief and extreme joy. And the way, I mean, as Claire had mentioned, like how I handle grief is much different than most people. And before even knowing the needs and kind of embracing the joy in life, I've always had a way of kind of meshing the two together, because I realized pretty early on that it's like, okay, I can be in a hole and I could deny myself laughing about this thing that in any other circumstance I'd think is funny. And sometimes I've seen people who are in situations who are like actively resisting the joy. Like, you know, they want to have, like, you can feel their inner being being like, I need this, I want this, like, I would actually enjoy this. And then you can see the struggle and kind of that fight within themselves, that it's like, I can't, because this is the situation. And whether it's self-judgment, whether it's judgment from other people, whether it's, you know, they simply don't believe that the two of them can like exist, not just together, but like intertwined with one another. Like, that's, you know, something, especially as I've begun to actively cultivate joy for these specific reasons and making sure that there's balance, like the memories and the beauty and the sense of, I don't know, like the sense of wholeness that can come from being in a really shitty situation and then being like, oh, there is that. Like there's like a little sparkle. It's like a little glimmer. And it's like, okay, like it usually won't make everything all better. It doesn't change the problems. It doesn't eliminate the grief, but it's like, okay, I need to remember there's that too. And that's something I want to focus on.
Well, they often say, I mean, using this example, like they often say that grief is like all the love that you didn't get to share. So like, it's like the reason that we are grieving is because we had this love, we had this connection. Like, it's like all the amazing things about that relationship or about that person are the reason the grief is present, and one doesn't exist without the other. So when you deny one to try and, oh no, we're supposed to be grieving now, this is what it's supposed to look like, you actually end up denying part of that, what a key component of the thing that makes that grief. I mean, I know that like different people have different relationships to this. I mean, like if chances are, if I find something that's some sort of dark humor around bereavement, I'm sending it to Serena. Like, she's the first person on my list. Like, I've got two friends who are like, I'm like, okay, I know you're going to appreciate this. Not because it's like they're laughing at it, because I know that that connects to that experience, that that's part of how they process that. And like, you can send that to me. Like, I have a friend who will send me something going, I'm going to send this to you. I find it funny. I know you may not find it as funny as me, but I don't have many people to share this with, so I'm going to share it with you because I know that you will share it with me. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. Like, it's not my go-to in this situation, but I can be in there and like sharing that with them. but that's not for everybody. And it's okay if it's not for everybody. And it doesn't have to be necessarily humor. It also could be just gratitude. It could just be appreciation for the person. Like there could be things that we can be grateful for, like even in like shitty situations that aren't like we're not even talking outside of like bereavement. Like if we're in a shitty situation, a lot of time a lot of this comes down to this how we process emotions in our society, how we've been taught about emotions in our society. We tend to kind of pigeonhole them. We go, well, this situation is a bad situation, so we're supposed to feel bad. And this is a good situation, so we're supposed to feel happy. And as we've talked about in previous episodes, very rarely is that ever the case where you have a completely good, bad, happy, sad situation. I mean, a lot of the times there are other components in there as well. And because we're like, oh no, this is what's culturally expected of us. This is this situation. So we're supposed to behave this way. Therefore, this is how we're going to process, and we're not going to allow those other emotions. It's possible to feel grateful about one thing in the presence of feeling despair about another thing. Like I remember, like I've talked about this when I talked about breakups that I've gone through, where like I'm dealing with like grief and relief at the same time. I'm dealing with like a sense of like hopelessness and a sense of like anticipation and possibility. I'm dealing with this like this feeling of frustration, but also this sense of like gratitude. Like, and none of these things are like emotions that people would go, well, they obviously go together, like that's a good fit. And that doesn't make them any less real. In fact, I think a lot of times it makes it more authentic in terms of the experience that you're having. Go on.
Well, part of the reason why is, I mean, some people do show up single dimensional in life. I'm not saying they are, but
most people do. A lot of people do.
And we're multidimensional beings. Like all of the things are there all of the time. And all of our needs are present all the time. What might be up is something like that can change, but we often forget that, I think, in those situations that we've been describing, whether it be grief, whether it be uncontrollable situations. And it's like, you know, I had to be this one thing for this one time, and it looks like this. And when Claire was mentioning the in the example of bereavement, like people are like, no, I have to grieve right now. This is the grieving time. There's no smiling, there's no laughing, there's no joy, there's none of this. Oftentimes what I've noticed is that can prolong the process, and sometimes it can actually stop the process of finding joy in certain situations completely. Like I've seen people eliminate the joy that has anything to do with somebody who's passed. And that's so sad for me, because I know that the people that have passed in my life live on through what I do, through me going places that I remember with them and really, you know, like talking about those experiences. And I get that that's not for everyone. And I've seen so many instances with people who have had somebody pass, or even like they've moved from a different location, and like that chapter is closed and we don't revisit it, and it lives in grief forever. This lives in shitty situation forever. And it holds us back from what's possible, which joy is
and from
possible.
Experience everything fully. I mean, and it's I do think it's very important in these situations to ensure that we are cultivating grief and cultivating joy. Sorry, my brain's thinking about two different things at the same time. Cultivating joy and creating moments of joy in ways that are authentic, and also in ways that are not masking the current situation. Because I do think that that's like, there's a so unsurprising nuance. There's nuance to this, because yes, we don't want to be like single dimensional in terms of like, oh, okay, this is all this bad thing and it's terrible and like, I don't know what to do and blah, 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 without allowing those moments of joy or gratitude or hope or whatever it is that are gonna come through. And I know some people in my life, and I'm thinking about a very specific situation where a bereavement had happened, and the people went to the funeral directors to like plan everything. And it was like a freaking comedy act. It really was. Like, it was like, there was like, almost like you can hear the ba-dum kind of sort of happening in the conversation. And this, I mean, the funeral director did not know what to make of it for a start. Now, if that had been genuinely what was present, and also the grief had been allowed in all of that as well. Did you miss your mouth as well? I'm like, apparently we're like tag teaming. Like, I missed my mouth on an episode recently. I mean, you tried to cover it well.
I did.
It was a subtle little brush off of the
and it
shirt.
didn't actually soak in, so I probably could have left it, but here we are.
And it's like, it's okay if like that's how you deal with these things, and you allow the grief as well.
Mm-hmm.
I also know the people in question, and I know that the comedy routine was masking their grief because they didn't really want to go there. They didn't want to allow themselves to grieve. They didn't want to feel it. They didn't want to process it. They didn't want to express it. And it was easier to show up as the jester for everybody else, and to be all like around the like making jokes and like what have you, than it was to be honest and authentic about their emotions and their feelings. So it's really important that we don't use joy as a mask to our other emotions, or and the truth of the matter is, if we're using it to mask our other emotions, it's probably not joy, because it needs to be authentic in order for it to be joy. And it can only be joy if it's coming naturally as a result of something that's been cultivated or in reaction to something in and of itself. Like, you can't have joy, like it, quote unquote joy that is used to mask something else often isn't really joy, because you're not really feeling joyful. It's something you are doing to try to escape the other uncomfortable feelings and avoid the other uncomfortable feelings, and to like pretend that they're not there. That's not, generally speaking, going to be a joyful experience. It's going to be like a performed joy, if you like. And that's exactly what that comedy routine was like. Let's do this because it's easier than the alternative, and we let's pretend that other stuff's not there. If I crack enough jokes, we won't have to look at it, we won't have to feel it. Let's pretend that's the case. And that happens a lot, where it's like people are looking for things to avoid the negative emotions. And I use negative emotions in like air quotes, and if you don't understand why, we'll put the why there's no such thing as negative emotions link to the episode in the show notes. So it's really important to allow both, and to find ways of engaging with both. So it's okay to process how you're feeling. Interestingly enough, I was doing a meditation this morning, and this like memory came up that wasn't that great. And I was like, oh, I'm thinking about this during my meditation. And I was like, oh, it's coming up because I can feel it now in this moment. So, and it was just something that hadn't been fully processed. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to allow myself to process it. And sure as shit, it processed. I felt it, and it disappeared off, and I then was able to kind of get back into the energy I wanted to be in. But if I'd spent my entire meditation fighting it, being like, nope, I'm not going to think about it, I'm not going to actually connect to the other stuff, because that's what's up, that's what's present. And so it's so important for us to honor and allow the full spectrum of emotions, even when things are difficult. Especially when things are difficult, because when things are difficult, that tends to be the time that we clamp down on our emotions, and we don't allow ourselves to feel, we don't allow ourselves to process, and we try to start, as I said, convincing the rest of the world that everything is fine, when in actual fact we have this kind of cauldron of feelings inside that are like, we're desperately like, we've got the cork in the top of it going, no, don't come out, stay there, I don't want to deal with you. And then what it means is that when it finally the kind of the lid blows on it, it all comes rushing out. We end up like feeling like we're an absolute mess, because we feel everything at the same time, because we don't have the ability to control it anymore. And so by allowing ourselves to feel it when it comes up, both the negative emotions or the less comfortable emotions, the emotions that maybe are connected more to the difficult side of what's going on, and allow ourselves to kind of start to cultivate moments of joy and moments of gratitude and moments of hope and moments of like wonder, or like those kind of moments alongside those, that's when we're going to like process our experience more authentically, and we're actually going to be more resourced in terms of our emotions.
I feel like you used the example of the cauldron, and I was kind of, as you were talking, I could envision a dam, and it's like you get this pressurized, like you don't want cracks in the dam. However, the dam is already fucking cracked. Like, basically, like, I mean, and I think that's it. Like, in the situation that I think the majority of people are in right now, like, we got cracks in the dam. We have to admit there, like, the dam is not solid. Nobody knows what the fuck is going to happen. And allowing both that, the negative, quote unquote, emotions and the joy, if you don't, those cracks are just going to grow. But I feel like if you process the things that maybe don't feel so good, that puts you in a little better situation. If you allow the joy into your life, that makes a little better situation. And the cracks, instead of growing, stop growing. Some of them even start to repair themselves. However, if we try to fully avoid the fact we're like, no, our dam's good, it's like, okay, let's see. Like, the chances of that really being the reality with the way things are right now, I'd really have to question it. Like,
yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching on the video and you're watching our faces, every now and again we get a disconnection that happens sometimes in our in the connection, like for the software that we're using. And so if you see me kind of going, it's because I've lost Serena, but she's still talking, so I'll pick it back up. So you'll see there'll be moments where I'm like, and then I'll be like nodding along. That we just lost connection for a second. It's fine. So like if you notice that, you're like, what the hell's Claire doing right now? I'm like, that's all it is. So yeah, I think the other thing that's really important to remember with this is that one of the things that we want to do as a culture is we want to start shifting ourselves out of this direction of like, this is what it's meant to look like. This is what grief is meant to look like. This is what struggle is meant to look like. This is what coping is meant to look like. This is what difficulty is meant to look like. This is what like challenge is supposed to look like. Because I think so much of this is because we know this from previous podcast episodes, that we are so dependent on other people for meeting our needs, and we are we often, because of that dependency, we need or want them to respond in a certain way to us in order for us to feel good about ourselves and in order for us to get our needs met. We tend to perform these things in the way that are culturally expected. So we do the things that are expected of us in those moments in time. Now, the only way that changes is if more of us start to behave in ways that are not culturally expected in those times. Because the reason they're culturally expected is because that's all we've ever seen. And what happens is you have that like first couple of people who are like, oh, that's a little different. That's a choice. Because normally there's some judgment around that. And then you go, wait, hold on a second. They seem way happier than the rest of us. And they seem to be doing way better than the rest of us in a lot of ways. Maybe they're onto something. And then more of us start trying it, and more of us start trying it. And like the more that you allow yourself to have these moments of joy, even in the most difficult of times, the more that it will invite other people to do the same thing. I remember I went to a celebration of life over the holidays. A friend of mine unfortunately lost her wife, and we had at that celebration of life, and there were tears and there were sad stories, but there was also so much joy in that space. And I remember like we were in a church, and at one point they played Dancing Queen because that was one of their songs. And the entire congregation got up and was dancing in the aisles, like, because that's what the person who's was running the celebration of life would have wanted. It was what her wife would have wanted. That's exactly what reflected who they were as people. And it's like, I mean, it was so funny because you'd see people being a little bit, I'm watching to see what's going on, because this is not if it had been my space, I would have made it very clear I want people up and dancing. But I'm watching to see what's going on. And it was so funny because the pastor of the church, they got up, and the second they got up, I'm like, okay, we're doing this. And I was at the back of the church, and I went right the way down the aisle. I'm like clapping at the top of my head. I'm like getting people up and everything, because I'm like, if we're doing it, we're doing it. Let's make this happen. And it was so beautiful to have that moment in what in a lot of places would be very somber, very kind of morose, very like everybody's wearing black. Everybody was wearing pink at this celebration of life on request of the person who passed. Most people were wearing black and like crying, and you're like, it's a very somber event. And the beauty of that one was it allowed all the things. There was sadness in there. There was love. There was a heartfelt appreciation for who this person had been in life, and how they touched other people's lives. And there was joy and celebration. We were like singing along to Pink Pony Club and dancing to Dancing Queen. And it was wonderful, because that to me was such a great example of grieving, because it didn't matter what space you were in that space, what emotional space you were in. There was space for wherever you were at. And if you were allowing all of those things, there was space for all of them. Like if somebody was super sad that day, there was space for them to be sad. But if someone was so grateful to having known this person, there was space. It was space for all of the things. And the more we do this, because it's what feels authentic to us. I said, you got to do it because it feels authentic. You can't do it because it's what's expected or it's what you should be doing. Like forcing joy because you think it's what you're supposed to be doing. That's no better than not allowing joy. And you can still choose to create it. And that's the thing, is that there's a difference between forcing and creating. Forcing is like, I'm joyful. It's not joy. Creating it is going, what would create this for me? How do I authentically create it in this moment? What are the things that I can do in order to bring more joy in for where I'm at right now? And depending on where you're at, those will be the answers to those questions are going to be different. And so it's really important to check in with where you are currently at in order to find the ways of connecting to joy in those moments that feel in alignment for you, that feel right for you.
Something it's a total off example from what we've just been talking about, but still in the still on topic. So
it's good for us.
Yeah, right. It's surprising sometimes. We talk a lot about uncontrollable situations, and I had an instance when I was traveling on an international vacation. It was for my 40th birthday, and everything was planned out to a T. And as with much of life, shit happens. And
with that trip in particular,
yes, it rained quite a few.
A lot of shit happened on that trip.
A lot of shit happened. Luckily, I already knew how to meet my needs.
Sorry, I went to take a mouthful of my kombucha and I laughed, and I kind of played the top of the bottle without realizing it. So if you're wondering what that sound was, that was me accidentally playing my kombucha bottle in response to Serena's story. So sorry, I'll go over here now. You carry on.
Well, now I'm looking to see if you missed your mouth or not.
I didn't. I got it.
So anyway, a lot can happen when you're traveling. And I used to be, I've talked about it on previous episodes. Like I used to be, when something went wrong, it was catastrophic. It ruined everything. There were tears. I mean, Karen came out. It was not a good look, and it didn't feel good. And I look back on times when like it all fell apart because I fell apart, and I was determined to be pissed off about a situation, to not see, not toxic positivity wise, but not see the good or the joy in a situation, just focusing on
the potential for joy. It's not just that there's joy, there's also like it's being able to spot the potential for joy in those moments that sometimes is the gateway that goes, oh, hold on a second, there's an opportunity here. How can I step into that? Sorry.
Yes. And that's actually leads on perfectly to what happened for situations beyond our control. We had an entire day of our vacation that we had to spend in our hotel room, which when you go on an international vacation, any vacation, being in your hotel room when that was not the plan, like very much so not the plan.
Doesn't feel like you're making the most of every second of the vacation, does it?
No, it doesn't. And it brought up some old feels, and I was like, oh, I'm getting a little punchy about this. I'm like getting really.
And if you're not a regular listener, that doesn't mean she's going to punch somebody else. She just feels a little punchy. That's where where that is.
I think we have an episode on that.
Just to clarify, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't getting like physical, but I was like, and I could start feeling it bubble up, and I could see my husband's reaction to what he assumed was gonna happen. And so at that point, like I said, I knew how to meet my needs and was well into my universal needs journey, and took a moment. I'm like, all right, this fucking sucks. This is frustrating. And we had a discussion, and it was like, we acknowledged what was present and what was really shitty about this situation. And we were like, we can let this ruin this trip. We can let this ruin this segment of this trip. There was a lot that could have been very detrimental in this situation, had we allowed it to be. However, we're like, all right, what can we do? What can we possibly do? And it was just starting from that. What can we do? We weren't even looking to create joy. We were just looking to see what are the options, enacting our personal power, giving ourselves choices. And what we ended up doing was ordering takeout, taking a full day of rest in the middle of a very busy vacation, and watching a stupid fucking movie. And I look back on that moment because I didn't sit in the I just did that, this didn't go my way and now everything's ruined and like that person's been on vacation many a times, and for
that's a great time generally.
Luckily they weren't present for this one, and we were like, all right, let's just this is the situation, this is what we're able to do. And we were able to, because of just that, what can we create? What's the possibilities? That possibility for joy opened up, because I look back on that moment and I'm like, a lot of magical moments happened on that vacation. And I'm like, and remember that one day we like stayed in the room all day and we watched the movie, and like we giggle about it and we have a joy, like a happy memory. And even maybe it wasn't like joy, but it was happiness. It was choice. It was us spending time together and not focusing on the negative, not ignoring it. Like we were both a bit pissy about the fact it happened, but we're like, are we gonna let it ruin the vacation? Are we gonna let it ruin the day? Are we gonna let it ruin us individually or our dynamic as a couple? No. Like, and just allowing for that little bit of possibility opened up the entire day for us. And we're like, oh my gosh, there's like, we do have options.
Right. Well, and I think so, like, I can imagine people listening going, right, well, so how do I do this? How do I cultivate joy in these times? And also, how do I cultivate joy that's not masking, that is authentic, but like, and there's a few steps to this. The first thing is to allow yourself to feel whatever you are currently feeling first. Like, it's so important to not use this to block what is currently present. And there are going to be like ebbs and flows. It's like, you're never going to probably be in a position where you're feeling nothing about it, but there are going to be some times where you're probably feeling some stuff quite intensely. In those moments, just let yourself feel what is currently present. Allow yourself to be in that, and that's to be the focus of your time, focus of your energy in that moment in time. So that's the first thing, is like making sure, because when you do that, you're not using joy as a mask. You're not using it as a distraction or as an avoidance strategy. You're allowing the other emotions present to be fully felt, to be fully expressed, to be fully processed. That's the first thing. The second thing is to look for, like, where is the potential for joy? Because I said, like, within this, it's not like you're looking at it going, well, joy is obviously over there, because especially if you're in a shitty situation, like, very rarely are you in a shitty situation going, well, that looks joyful and that looks joyful and that looks joyful. It's about looking for where are the potential moments for joy. And one of the things that can help you to do that is to do exactly what Serena and Joe did in that moment, which is to go into your creator approach and look for what the options are. So you want to be checking in and saying, okay, what could we do in this situation? What could be done in this moment that would connect me to more joy or more gratitude or more hope or more whatever the emotion is that you're wanting to connect to, that feels lighter, that feels like it's going to nourish you and resource you more than the other emotions that are present, or the other emotions you have been feeling. Because a lot of the time when we're processing the emotions that are up, those are the emotions they're taking, like it's taking energy for us to do that, because it's meeting our needs, because they have to be processed in order for us to process our experience. So it's like there's energy that's going to be expended in doing that. What we're now looking for is, what are the opportunities to connect with joy and other emotions that are going to give us more energy? So the uncomfortable emotions tend to use energy. The other emotions tend to fuel us and to provide us with more energy. So those, like, where can we connect to, and look at options? And this is where the kind of spaghetti on the wall, noodles on the wall that we talk about all the time comes in. It's like, well, we could do this and we could do this and we could do this and we could do this. Now, the key with this, when you are, especially when you're in a difficult space, and especially when things are kind of seeming insurmountable and there's a lot going on, is if you are just starting to practice doing this, start small. Start with something that feels easy, simple, doable, something that's not going to take a lot of time, something that's not going to take a lot of energy. Because if it doesn't quite hit the mark, it doesn't matter so much. If you're like, okay, well, that didn't quite do it. And also, remember, in these moments, you're not looking for like a 10 out of 10 out of joy. Like, you're not looking for like, la, everything's amazing, I'm so happy. Like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a little glimmer of joy. We're looking for these moments of lightness. We're looking for these things that are going to give us a little bit of fuel, a little bit of resource from an emotional standpoint. So it doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10. It could be a 2 out of 10. It could be a 1 out of 10. A 1 out of 10 on the joy scale is still better than not experiencing any joy at all. So it's okay for it just to be a little bit like something that it reminds me of, like, the difference between when if I watch like stand-up comedy that I really enjoy by myself versus watching it with somebody else. If you watch it by yourself, you're like, okay. Yeah. And then every now and again, there might be one joke in the entire thing, which is actually so funny that you really do laugh out loud. Like when you're on your own, you're like, that was funny. Versus when you're with somebody else, a lot of time, if you're watching comedy with other people, because of the energy in the room and because we often get enjoyment out of other people enjoying it as well, we're probably going to laugh out loud more often than we would do. We're going to experience it at a more heightened level if we do it with others than we are going to do if we're doing it on our own, depending on who we are. So we're not necessarily looking for that, like, oh my goodness, I'm rolling around on the floor laughing. But if I'm smiling versus when I was processing the grief sobbing, that's still a little bit in that, okay, it's a lighter emotion. There's something here that's lifting me slightly. So it's okay if it doesn't have to be this like be all end all of joy. It can just be these little moments, and you can start with the things that you know that you love. So it could be like listening to music that you like watching a comedian that you like, watching a TV show or a movie that makes you feel good, watching something that doing something like dancing, moving your body in some kind of way, going somewhere where you're gonna you know that you normally connect to joy. Now, I'm going to add a slight caveat to this, but I've got a feeling you've got something you want to jump in with before I do.
Nope. Oh, good.
No. Is that check in with where you are currently at, because where you are at will affect the thing that is going to be best suited for you in terms of cultivating joy. So I'll give you an example on this. So I had a situation last weekend. It's been very, very busy. It's been very heavy with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world right now. And so I've been very tired recently. And there is, I've talked about it before, every Sunday here, we have something called tea dance, which is where we go and they play kind of like cheesy music and we have a dance and we connect with friends. And I tend to go to tea dance most weeks when I'm feeling good. Like that's a part of my regularly scheduled programming here in Key West. And so it's common for me to go, but I haven't been for a few weeks because I've also been recovering from being sick. So it's not something that's been like top of my list to do. This week, I was like, I'm well enough that I could technically go. And there are lots of people there I hadn't seen in a while that I really wanted to see. I had friends who don't normally go to tea dance message me going, we're going to tea dance, are you coming? And those friends were telling me that other friends of mine were going to be at tea dance. And like, everything in me was like, oh, this is what I really normally want out of a tea dance. I want to go when everyone's going to be there. I want to go and experience. And the truth of the matter is, I checked in and I was like, that's not what I need right now. That's not going to bring me joy. I think it's probably going to bring me overwhelm, in a way that is not going to be supportive to my needs. It's probably going to drain my needs. And what I'm sure I'm going to have some great moments there. I'm going to see some people. I'm going to have some hugs. I'm going to enjoy connecting, but that's not it right now. And I was like, I need to get out of the house. I know I need to do that. What can I do? Where can I go? I'm like, so what I did was I went for a walk. I went down to the pier. I went down to be by the ocean because being by the ocean normally is a good thing for me. And I took my poi and I had my earbuds in and I was playing music that felt good to me. And I was actually expressing myself. I was dancing with my poi by myself at the end of a pier. There were people everywhere. And it was so funny. Different people's reactions when you do something like that in public, where they're assuming that you're doing it to be watched, to be seen. And I'm like, oh no, I would much prefer it if none of you were here right now. But I don't mind you being here, but I'm okay. And like people were walking past me and it was funny. I was doing the move that Joe taught me how to do a couple of weeks ago and I still can do it. When I first tried it again, I couldn't get it. I was like, no, I had it and now I've lost it. This is not okay. But I figured it out and I was like, okay, so I figured out the move. And that move, if you don't know poi, I mean, it's impressive even if you do know poi because it took me years to be able to do it. But it looks kind of cool. It looks pretty impressive. And I was out there with my angel poi, so I've got like a tail on my poi as well. So I'm like, so I'm doing something that looks pretty impressive. And I've got people coming up, like literally walking in front. I'm obviously not interested in engaging with anybody because I've got my little earbuds in and I'm looking out into the distance, like doing my own thing. And people are walking in front of me doing this. And I'm like, thanks. If you're not watching on the video, I mean, they would like doing some twizzly thing with their arms and then giving me a thumbs up. I'm like, I appreciate that you appreciate this. I'm not doing it for that, but thanks, I guess. Okay. So, and I bumped into a couple of people I knew. I had a couple of hugs while I was out and about, but generally speaking, I was just in my own little zone. I was in the fresh air. I was by the ocean. I was listening to music that I liked. I was moving my body in a way that felt good for me. That gave me a different sense of joy in that moment. And it was the joy that I needed in that moment. 90% of the time, the tea dance would have been, as it was this weekend, would have been the tea dance that would have brought me the most joy. And sometimes that's the thing. We have to remember to check in. Like, just because this is our go-to joy thing doesn't mean that it's the thing that's going to resonate with where we're at in this moment. And we want to check in and go, does this really work for right now? It was one of the options. It was a very compelling option. And I actually saw people on Monday who were there and they were like, we didn't miss you at tea. I was so wanting to come. I really did. But I knew I needed something else in that moment. And so I listened to that and I gave it to myself. And the feeling of like fulfillment as I walked back from that walk, it felt so good because I'd not only had done something that brought joy for myself, I'd really listened to myself and I did the thing that really was right for me in that moment in time. I'm going to be honest, my shoulders were killing me the following day because I hadn't spun poi for that long by myself, uninterrupted for a hot second. And that was okay. That was part of it as well. But I'm like, it really nourished me. And that was the thing. That's what we're looking for joy to do in these moments. We're looking for it to nourish us. We're looking for it to fuel us. We're looking for it to fulfill us in order that we have more resource and we can build more resilience to navigate the challenging things that we have going on. Anything you want to add before we kind of close out for the day? I think I kind of feel like this is one of those things that we've kind of talked about it in different ways before. We've never talked about it in quite this specific way. And I do think this is a really important thing for people to get when it comes to joy.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, we're off to go and create some joy for ourselves. Hope that you do too. We will be back again next week. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week with another episode. But between now and then, remember to stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard
and would like to see some of Serena's awesome facial expressions,
check out the video podcast on YouTube.
And remember, when times are challenging, it's so important to allow yourself to feel all the things, including joy.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.